Hey, adventurers. The episode you're about to listen to is rough. The edit is very rough. We ran into a technical glitch during recording. We lost our tracks. Then the platform that we use, the people there were able to restore some of them. They were not restored to the highest quality. Something happened and it all got screwed up. So apologies for the rough edit. Thank you for listening, and we hope you enjoy this regardless of how it sounds. Now, on with the show. Coming to you from the Endless Library, where every book is read and every spoiler discussed. Join us as we dig into the lives of fictional people who cannot defend themselves. This is the SideQuest Podcast.
Welcome back, SideQuesters, to the World of Cradle, Wintersteel, Part 2. Last time, on Wintersteel. Linden goes on a date. Nothing else happened. Slava, over to you.
Well, nothing of note happened. There were some fights. Linden goes on a date. Apparently, Mercy's somehow invested in Lyndon's love life. That was...
She's like the catalyst. If she can't be happy, everyone else should be happy. Which is like a reverse of how normal people act.
Or everybody else in this world, yes.
Yes, fact. Yep. Yeah. That's true. But to start us off, we said last time that we were going to talk about Aethon's ability to see. So let's talk about his Underlord revelation on the front end of this episode.
Let's you know what we should talk about is Aethon's ability to see. I agree. Oh, my computer screen just... What the hell happened? Don't go away, Jonathan.
This will be a short. Old man learns how to use a computer.
Funny. You're hilarious.
I can tell by the laughing. I mean, if we started the last episode with laughter, we should probably start this episode with laughter, so
sure.
Makes sense.
I'm just slow in the uptake. I need to find my notes.
If you put your glasses on, you'll be able to see them because they're right in front of you.
Good point. It's a good thing I know how to read. So, I will. Right, so, back to serious things. When Aethon advances to Overlord, his revelation is pretty simple. I see. The statement, I guess, describes who he is more fully for us, the reader, and it signifies that his identity is intrinsically tied to his perception and understanding, and that's why he can make the calculated moves that he can, or that he does. He is the one who saw. I think that's one of the more literal translations that's given to us in text. So I guess what we can derive from that is Aethon had figured out what was going on with Shah Miara being a monarch in disguise, even before Lindon fully understood the implication as they were spoon-fed to him, to use your term, by Dross. And he was given like an altered memory of Cyriel's visit. And so I guess for me, what this demonstrates is Aethon's ability to piece together information in a way that transcends other people's abilities and then deduce things, truths, or certain aspects of a situation that others miss, even when presented with incomplete or maybe missing, maybe misleading data. And again, to my initial point just a few seconds ago, that's why he's able to make the chess moves that he does.
Which begs the question, how far does that sight go?
It can't go too far, because otherwise it would be a complete deus ex machina and a pretty bad one. So he's probably able to see farther than his compatriots there, farther than maybe some of his enemies, farther than maybe some of the monarchs, and those people who are above the monarchs, and maybe even see a few of the chess moves of the Abaddon, but he can't be omnipotent. Otherwise, that's no fun. He can just see everything and nothing happens, and there's only one more book after that, if that's his power.
Right. Does he see further, do you think, than the Sage of 1,000 Eyes, Claudia, from the Aurelius homeland?
Now that is an interesting question. If I was to guess, and this is me guessing, I would say no. maybe close to it, but not at the same level, because it goes back to the Deus Ex Machina comment. I just don't see Wight doing that. They still have to have 4 more books of struggle and war and fighting and overcoming obstacles and achieving greater things, and there's arcs for their personalities, arcs for their characters, arcs for their abilities as sacred artists. Not right now, would be my guess, if he ever gets to that far. But what do I know? I'm a noob when it comes to Cradle.
Sure, but you're learning. You're probably a Jade by now. Maybe an Iron.
Oh. The least I could ask is to be a Jade in your presence. Under douche.
Didn't we talk about paths that we would be before? I can't remember what mine is. But here are the limitations that we see from Aethon. One of the first ones that we see is when Aethon allows Lyndon to get his arm ripped off, right?
Yeah.
He's in a fight, and then Lyndon asks him afterward, like, why did you let that happen? And he's like, I needed him to pull out that weapon so that I could retaliate. However he said it, right? But if he had the Deus Ex Machina level that we're talking about, then he would have seen that that wasn't going to happen in time, and he could have made a different move. He didn't. Linda got injured. So there are limitations, right?
Yeah.
There's another moment where he is surprised, and he's like, I hate surprises. I should have seen them coming, or whatever he says, which I believe is actually the book before that. No, that might be the same book, book 3, where they get jumped by the Jailong clan. That sounds right. Anyway, so there are limitations to his sight. However, we have a moment in this book where Aethon is following after Zeal, and he's like, you know, it would be just wonderful if I was able to make this very special elixir that could fix you back to not necessarily perfect, but very, very close. And Zeal's like, I don't believe it. And he's like, I just so happen to have all the ingredients and someone who can make it and somebody who knows the, what did he call it? Not procedure, ceremony, whatever. Zeal stops, turns around, and goes, I don't believe you. Keeps walking, right? And then Aethon's like, how about I pay you up front? And Zeal goes, I still don't believe you. But Aethon has the ability to see. He said I was planning for this, even though Zeal was not able to make it to top 4, which is still very impressive for how injured he is. Also begs a different question that, like, I guess if you used to be an Archlord but are no longer an Archlord, you can compete still? Question mark? It's not a question we need to answer, but just as a note, because he used to be an Archlord and now he's not. Anyway, yeah, so like Aethon, I think the way that his powers work are that he reads the threads of fate, similar to Serial, but on a much like more grounded level, because he can still be surprised. But I actually think that he probably sees further than the Sage of the Thousand Eyes.
Do tell. Why is that?
I don't have any proof for this. So that's
well done.
That's my opener.
So the next thing we wanted to talk about.
Just because he's a main character. And that's the episode, folks.
So your pictographs end after just that statement, and you can't tell us anything else.
Correct.
Well, if you ever, even in the course of this episode, think of something that backs up that claim, I'd like to hear it. Because in my mind, and I'm not going to repeat what I said a few minutes ago, but in my mind, stylistically, it makes more sense, at least in this book and maybe the next, that he's still at a lower level than that sage. I could be completely wrong in my assumption or my claim, because I also have nothing to back it up. I'm just looking at it from the SideQuest POV going, okay, Will Wight building a world, telling a story. At this point, the Dread Gods are yet to come, although they're very close, and by the end of the book, we know, oh my god, they are coming. I think it's still too soon, but whatever. Not to belabor that point. We'll figure it out, I suppose. Unless you're telling me, hint, hint, wink, wink, I read book 10 and 12, and we do find out that his seeing ability is farther than the Sage of 1,000 Eyes. Or audience,
like I said,
just
I don't
drop
have any
me the
proof.
spoiler in the comments.
So that's actually something you never asked before. You asking the audience to spoil it for you. I'm
I am.
surprised it's taken you 3 years to do that.
Well, I thought it was appropriate in this situation. Because unlike the Cosmere, where I am fully on board, I have given myself over to you and Spence as a student of the Cosmere,
Sort of.
to some degree. Here, it's not that I don't care about
Barring
the story.
a fit or two.
Whatever. It's not that I'm completely uninterested in this story, but I am less interested in the sense of the journey, where I know this is a fast-paced book, a fast-paced series. Let's just get to it. Let's get it done.
The whole
Let's
thing
get
is
it
a
finished.
pun. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
From the cradle to the grave. Yes.
well done. Well played, sir.
Honestly, when I first read that, I was taken aback. And I was like, he did it. That's crazy. And the thing is, like, the whole thing being a pun was lost on me. I just want to know how often he's just sitting alone and he thinks about it and he's like, I got all these mother truckers fooled into loving this series. And all it is a big pun.
That
Just
makes me
starts
like him
cackling
even
to
more.
I mean, I bet he does.
Drinking his whiskey
Anyway.
on the rocks, just laughing maniacally in his armchair
Probably.
late at night.
But no, I don't have any other data, like I said, about Sage of the Thousand Eyes. She's not even really around in the next couple books, honestly, because they run off, into the great beyond to deal with the dread gods and level up and stuff like that. So,
Well, all evidence aside, I say we move on to something you pointed out before we started recording. It's actually kind of interesting. It's Mercy and her mother, so Mercy and Malice, talking about her loss.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so Mercy faces some public humiliation, and then Malice summons Mercy to her chambers, which was not done in private, so that adds to the already public humiliation. And she allows the entire Akura clan to witness this interaction, if you want to call it that. And I don't know why, but she ensures that Mercy's failure, quotes over that, which is really a failure. It is a failure at the base level. But she ensures that that event, which in this culture will be perceived as a grave failure and even like bringing shame to the family, is publicly displayed.
Shame to the family. I was just going to say that.
Yep. Displayed
In front of Yerin, too.
in front of
Not
Yerin,
just family, but, like, their prized fighter. Yeah.
their prized fighter, and Mercy's buddy, right? They're friends. At least Mercy really likes Yerin. Whatever Yerin's affections or lack thereof are for Mercy, which there are some, but Mercy's the happy-go-lucky one who really likes Yerin. So it compounds the shame, right? Amplifies the shame, if you will. And then there's the verbal dressing down that she gets. Malice tells Mercy directly that she is a disappointment and that she has dragged her name through the mud. And what everybody wants to hear from their parents, that she's let her down. So I like the fact that Yerin comes to her defense.
Has got to feel not good.
No, not at all. But I do like that Yerin comes to her defense, and she confronts Malice about her treatment of Mercy. But of course, Malice, as any good narcissist parent, justifies the actions in this pseudo-profound way that the Akura name is greater than any one part. And sure, at its base, again, that's a true statement. But the way this is executed, the way that it's foisted, all this debt of responsibility is foisted upon Mercy is horrendous. That doesn't bolster anybody to do better. Maybe in this context and in this culture, sure, it forces people out of fear or shame or other things to act better. But does it really endear people and embolden them and challenge them to do better? Not in any real way, not in any authentic way. But that's just me.
Even when we get Mercy's POV, she's like, the losing is bad enough. Why do I have to then deal with the public shaming. And the thing is, I'm within reason. I think public shaming is okay if it's justified. This instance, I understand, different world, might makes right, etc., etc.
Yeah. Well,
so
if somebody does something
makes sense.
bad, right? If somebody does something truly awful in public, they should be called out in public.
Correct.
But losing a match when you already won so many is not a place for you just to get crapped on in front of everybody, no matter how consequential that match might have been. This is where you praise in public and confront in private.
Right. But Malice cares so much more about her name than she will admit.
Yep. I agree with that.
So, Akura House lives on through Yerin, but, yeah, I like Fury's response where Malice is like, you need to watch this, and he's like, no, I don't. Whoop! Closes the window.
Yeah.
I'm surprised Charity didn't do the same thing, but I think that Fury has a different relationship with Malice than Charity does.
I'd imagine so also.
Side quest for you. Do you think we ever meet Mercy's father?
Now, that's a question. Yes, but also no, because if he hasn't been around, unless he's pivotal to the plot, which he might be, I don't see a reason for him to be. So if I was a betting man, 60% no, 40% yes, if that's a suitable answer for you.
Sure. Yeah, he walked out for a remnant in Sacred Valley and never came back. So,
Yeah. That pack of smokes must be at a gas station far, far away.
It's true. The gas station is pretty far away. But let's keep moving on. So Yerin gets trained last episode by the Winter Sage. We see Yerin in a battle. Hey, it's dangerous to go alone. So don't. You should always side quest with friends. Hit that subscribe button and join the party. So, all that said, they have put all their money on Yerin winning this thing. And Yerin goes on to, I'm kind of jumping around here a little bit, but she fights Callan Archer, and he thinks that he's going to get one over on her. He doesn't. She beats him, but it almost feels like she's holding back a little bit with the fight because she kind of hesitates, I guess I'll call it, to finish him when he's been like dismembered, because he has a blood shadow as well. Or not a blood shadow, he has the weeping dragon, and her blood shadow starts feasting on him, and then she starts fighting her own shadow for a little bit, trying to, stop stop Ruby from, doing that. But at the end of the fight, because Yerin does win, it says that she looks at her blood shadow and she notices the look on her face and doesn't even need telepathy to know what she's thinking. But she's full. She's been, satisfied.
Satiated.
Yes, with power and blood. So now the Akura clan is all in on Yerin winning this thing for them. And there's a kind of I'll call it a heated discussion, right? Where afterward, Lyndon breaks into her room. The Nine Cloud Court voice is annoyed. And they say they're going to start charging him and maybe pressing charges if he keeps breaking in like that. And Charity's there. The Winter Sage is there. And the Winter Sage has, her stark opinion that they need to, contain Ruby. And Charity goes, oh no, we are going to feed that thing. Which is the correct answer in terms of might makes right. Because the Winter Sage is, I'll just say it, she's kind of a purist, right? Like, well, you shouldn't be like that. And it's like, yeah, but I am. So either we're going to use it to our advantage or like we're not. And we're not is not an option because she basically won the fight for them. So it'd be dumb not to, continue to use Ruby as a weapon, right?
Yeah, and it's good on Charity because acting on behalf of the, Akura Malice, she does overrule the Sage's insistence. And instead, she said this needs to be improved given what a huge advantage it is, meaning the Blood Shadow. And that offers an excellent willpower and training. Yeah.
Yeah, they only have 2 weeks for that extra training.
Yep. And I guess if they were more objective, and it's easy to say this as the reader, but if they were more objective, they would see that Ruby is developing some sort of independence, but she's also cooperating. She's not
100%
trying to take over Yerin like it was, or she was when she was underdeveloped.
Yeah, more of a mindless blood shadow as opposed to like an exact blood shadow, I guess I'll call it.
Yeah.
So we're gonna skip for a second. Lyndon going to collect points, which he loves to do. All right. Slava's clearly got some thoughts on that.
Well, not a lot of thoughts, but yeah, he really loves to collect his points, and that says it all.
He's a completionist. What do you play video games? He's a completionist. What do you want from him?
Yes, I am. I play video games, and I am also a completionist. But in world, in character, this is Lindon trying to get the most out of everything. And yes, before anybody comes at me, I understand exactly why, and I don't necessarily blame him for it. Like, don't do that, finger wag at Yerin. At Linden. But this is what makes him a little bit of a dork, and that's okay.
A little bit? He's 100% a dork. Oh, yeah.
Okay, 100% dork. It makes him a dork, and that's why we love him, but it still, has me rolling my eyes a little bit.
Fair enough. So, we're going to pause on him for a second, and then you can tell me all about your thoughts on Lyndon and his point system development things. One of Yerin's prizes is basically a blood tablet. No. One of her prizes is from the Blood Sage, who comes to give her gift in person on behalf of Raygon Shen, because Raygon Shen, as a reminder to the folks listening, has made a deal with the Dread God cults, basically. And he gives her a Heart's Gem, which is an ultimate source of blood aura for Ruby, which she will need. And honestly, it kind of feels like he's doing it specifically to continue his research, because no one else has gotten as far as he has before with their blood shadow. And it's condensed blood of the Red Moon Herald, who was once the Blood Sage's own blood shadow, which that's just an interesting world building moment, right? Like, his own blood shadow split off from him and became a herald in and of their own right.
Yeah.
He tells Yerin not to trust her blood shadow because his betrayed him. And so he fused with his blood shadow instead of his remnant to become a herald. But his blood shadow fled to become a herald, as I'm kind of repeating myself at the moment. So they couldn't become a monarch. And he tells her not to fuse with hers until she's a sage. Yerin, prickly, spicy young lady, gives him a piece of her mind. Basically tells him he's an idiot. And funny enough, Charity offers to help her with better insults for next time, because Charity also doesn't like the Blood Sage.
Yeah, I like that. That was good. I forgot that until you just mentioned it. But that was a good little bit in the book.
Honestly, and we kind of said this last time, the book moves so fast, you kind of miss some of this stuff,
Yeah, and there's some things for me, as I've said in the previous episode, my brain just turned off because I was looking forward to the next big, bad, fast thing happening, the action happening. So when it does slow down for just a wee bit, my brain shuts down and is waiting for the next thing to happen, the next big thing to happen. So that's the problem for me personally. But as you said, it also moves pretty fast otherwise. So there's so much that unless you're reading for absolute comprehension, which we kind of should be in some way for this podcast since we're going to dissect the book, but it's impossible to do that with the lives and the schedules that we have. So you're reading it as best as you can. You're taking notes. I'm taking notes, dumping them into our document so we can talk about this in some way that resembles an actual book club and people coming with their ideas and thoughts and commentary. you miss a lot of stuff. And you're the person that's read this 2 or 3 times. And so you have, 2 or 3 ways of looking at it, 2 or 3 ways of retaining the information, because you read it for fun. You probably reread it for fun. Then you read it for this podcast. Then you told me you re-listened to some portions of the book preparing for this episode. So you have a lot more of it embedded in your memory than I do.
100%. Same goes for like when we read it, right? Like I'm like, what's that kid's name again? Who did the thing? And you're like, that's not his name, because you've read that a dozen times, right?
Right.
So same, different book, different genre. But I have honestly tried to integrate some of Yerin's speech patterns into my life a little bit because they're so funny. It's just, I love it so much. You know, it's these one-liners, bleed and bury me. You're looking at me, who am I supposed to ask? Right? Nope. I think some of the earlier books we did, what's your favorite one-liner? But it's just such fun writing. And I know that I'm just kind of dweebing out a little bit here, but I've read a bunch of other books, and, the ones that I complain about, I actually put effort into hating, which is like 2 or 3 max. And then there's just a whole bunch of books that are like, meh, that I'll never suggest for us to read. And then there's stuff like this where it's like, oh, this is a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun. And because it, scratches an itch or is nostalgic to our love for anime, because we both grew up watching, Pokemon, Dragon Ball Z. I moved quickly into anime like Ghost in the Shell and Death Note. Nevertheless, that aside, we're both fans of anime. So reading it in book form, that's fun. When the characters are funny and interesting, and you have somebody like Yerin with her quips and one-liners that are totally the opposite of foreign. They're totally natural and familiar to us as Americans, but yeah, this is set in an Eastern setting. That makes it even more fun to be immersed into this world.
Yep. It's got the, I think most animes have some sort of tournament arc, which is a good time. But in terms of narrative literature, which we like about the Cosmere, like there's parallel narratives going on with Linden, Yerin, Aethon, Mercy. They're all running concurrently, even when people get pulled out of the tournament, right? And then we still follow them around partially. Now, you can't follow everyone around at the same percentage, so we mostly are following Yerin and Lindon because Lindon's our main character. But
I forget that sometimes.
It all in all ends up being that Lindon's the main character.
Yeah.
Why? That's curious. Why do you think that happens?
Well, because Aethon and Yerin and Mercy have endeared themselves, at least to me as a reader. So now they're a pack. Yes, we started with Lyndon, and he's our main guy. That's who we start with. And then
gratitude.
Apologies. But as we move on in the story, he gets attached to these people who are more than just somebody helping him get to the next thing, or more than a side character he meets here and is with him for a chapter or a book. These folks are now his tribe. So by book 8, I see them as a collective, as a whole. So I don't necessarily view him as a main guy and he has a girlfriend that can kick some ass with swords. I see him and Yerin and Mercy and Aethon as a group now. So it's hard for me to keep in my head that he's the main guy. And maybe he's not. Maybe it's the way Will intended to write this is we start with one guy, but now we're following 4 people.
I think that I'd say that Lyndon is still the main character through the whole series. And we have the guide, who is Aethon, right? We have the companion / love interest, who is Yerin. We have not quite the Samwise Gamgee through Mercy, but close-ish. We have the reluctant hero also through Zeal. And we have another guide, Orthos, that disappears, right? So we have a really strong cast, to your point.
We do. And I suppose you make a valid point. I think, yes, Lyndon's still the main guy, despite how close this group is and what roles they play in world, in the literary sense. But for whatever reason, I come to these books and have for the last probably 2 or 3, even though I've never said this in a podcast, but in hindsight and thinking about it as you were talking, and as that thought popped in, like, but I really view them as a whole. The team is the character to me. The team is the main character to me. But whatever. We don't have to dwell on that.
Yeah, let's keep rolling on. Let's talk just quickly about Lyndon and his points. As a quick reminder, Lyndon goes out on the battlefield where Fury and Pride are. They're kind of holding down the front lines. When they get there, there's a big fight going on. And was it Fury? I think it was Fury. Said, these things are worth these points, these things are worth these points, and they're split off into teams. Pride is put in Lyndon's team again. He's not happy about that. Lyndon makes a plan, does the numbers. He's almost like Jean. He's crunching the numbers and figuring out like, oh, actually, if we do this, this, and this, we can get diamond veins and this other stuff if you guys work really hard. So he devises a plan, and then when he gets everybody on board with the plan, he starts executing. And there comes a moment when Pride has to basically come to terms with the fact that the diamond veins that they can afford and purchase would be actually quite strategically useful for Lyndon to buy and then absorb into himself. And so he's like, all right, just use these. But it takes 3 days for that to take place. But it really gives Lyndon a leg up as a character once he absorbs that power item. So
yeah, it was nice to see Pride being less like Pride and looking at the bigger picture.
A small moment of growth for him.
Just a tiny one.
Oh, man. And then Lyndon starts just whooping ass, right?
Yeah, he certainly does. And I think giving him this moment is good for his, whatever, self-esteem, self-worth, view of self, is he has jumped again, but this time, because of the team that he has, I think, he's no longer grabbing at it like some fevered, starved, malnourished orphan. He sees this as more, oh, this is a growth. Oh, this is good. And he is proud of himself and he's happy and, he sees the value of this growth, but he's no longer as much of a, I don't want to say coward. That's not the word I'm looking for. He's more mature at this point, right?
Yeah, I think all you really, I would sum everything you just set up into just he's developing as a character. He's growing into himself.
Yeah, that's fair. There's a better way to say it, and I wanted to say it, but I couldn't. But yes.
All right, take the next 30 minutes and just babble on, and then I'll try to summarize it with a single sentence at the end.
You
Don't
got
actually
it.
do that. Nobody wants to listen to that.
I don't even know.
So when Lyndon's on the battlefield, that's also true. You don't. Dodgy shows up and starts basically badgering Lyndon that he made a deal with the dragons, and that's why they're not fighting. And Mayra reprimands Dodgy for being an idiot. And so Lyndon just can't. He basically isn't allowed to have more than 4 friends, is really what it boils down to. Not in this world. Well, you made it this far.
Why not go a step further?
Rate the show.
It helps more than you think.
Is that for Aethon, Zeal, Lyndon? No. Aethon, Zeal, Yerin, Mercy. I'm not counting Orthos and Little Blue because they're not humanoid.
Or Dross.
Well, I guess Little Blue's kind of. Oh, yeah, Dross. All right, so he just doesn't have any room for more friends. Is really what it boils down to. So, anyway, moving on. It's time for Yerin to fight the final battle with Sepharnatoth. And I've been practicing saying her name better so that I don't sound like Slava. Oh.
What's that now? I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah. So the next fight is Yansho Mei and her bestial Blood Shadow facing Yerin against her Blood Shadow. So Yerin and Ruby versus Yansho Mei and Crusher. And Yansho Mei kind of used the same tactic that she did before and enhanced herself to create a separate, bestial creature instead of using her Blood Shadow to create a mirror image of herself. Because if I remember the stats correctly from, I believe it was Ghostwater, the benefit in the short term is a lot greater because what Yerin did required a lot more work to actually accomplish. So Yansho Mei wins the first match, and then we cut over to Yerin and her Blood Shadow, Ruby, arguing and yelling that the power that they could have if Yerin wasn't afraid of her, and Charity pops in there and encourages them to cooperate, because if they don't, they'll lose, which matters to the Ikuros, right? Min Shui, on the other hand, tells her to break Ruby down for power, just raw power. So that's the not only internal struggle that Yerin is dealing with, but also external struggle at the same time.
Yes. And eventually, it's Yerin's idea for them to fuse together, which gets into the last fight. But I think for Yerin, she's more practical than the other folks around her, a lot more practical. So she sees this cooperation, even though she gets into a little fight with Ruby, she sees their cooperation and their later fusion a much greater reward than consuming the Blood Shadow or dicing her up for power, however you just said it. The greater reward, return on investment, if you will, is them fusing together and working together. And she eventually talks Ruby into doing that.
Well, that doesn't happen right away, but yes, that does happen. That happens during the battle with Sepharnatoth. So basically, just a little correction here, is in her second battle, Yerin and Ruby work together, and they cover for each other while they're fighting. Crusher and Yansho Mei are frozen because of Yerin's abilities that she learned from the Winter Sage, and Ruby takes that moment to use a binding in the sword in one of the earlier rounds that was used with Charity's advice, or picked up with Charity's advice, Netherclaw, which is a black murderous sword with a forger binding, and forms a blood claw and swipes down with Archlord level power, and that blows Yansho Mei out of the water. So they're 1-1.
Yeah, so Chinese Nightblood.
Chinese Nightblood. Yes, pretty much. And then there's the third round. Yansho Mei reveals she also has an Archlord weapon, a bow that shoots silver and red aura that shreds its targets from the inside out. Ruby saves Yerin by pushing Crusher into one of these arrows, and she's annihilated as well, which then gives Yerin the moment and chance to slice Yansho Mei's throat with an endless sword, which works. And then, as the battle concludes, she is returned to Malice's chambers, not the waiting room, which is where she normally goes. And Malice explains that Shen was trying to get a hold of her, Raygon Shen, and so Malice brought her to her own chambers instead, because Raygon Shen is trying to attempt to bribe her the way that he bribed Aethon. So that would be what Malice is up to, right? So that gets Yerin to the final two, and I'm sure that the clan, the Bleeding Phoenix, is not thrilled because they don't control Yerin, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Yerin realizes in the conversation with Malice that Malice's life is in her hands, because if Yerin wins penance, she could also kill Malice. Doesn't have to be an enemy. She could just not like Malice enough to just do it. And Yerin's the kind of person who might do that. So,
Yeah. Talk
you know,
more shit
and
about
that's-
Mercy.
And this is the moment that's exactly what I was going to say. Is this is the moment that you were talking about earlier, where Malice is reprimanded by Yerin, who's kind of taken it. She's like, "Well, I've got, the power. Let me just give you a piece of my mind." Which I don't think anybody else would have done that with Malice besides Yerin.
I don't think so. Not at all. Aethon would have jumped around the issue, skirted the issue, tried to be diplomatic. Lyndon would have just, pooped his pants and said gratitude. And Yerin is the one who has enough chutzpah to be like, you know what? Nah, I don't like you. I don't like what you're saying about my girl Mercy. And it might not be my girl Mercy, maybe just the principle that pisses Yerin off.
Probably both. I mean, here's the thing. At this juncture, Yerin likes Mercy enough to hang around, right? Like, even though they're fighting each other and whatever, it's like they understand it's for a greater cause.
Yeah.
Yerin certainly likes Mercy more than her family.
Yeah. Have you had friends where you liked them a lot, you got along, but their family or adjacent folks were just pieces of garbage?
That's a curious question.
Oh, let me tone it down. They don't have to be pieces of garbage. They just have to be somebody that you didn't care for. Like, you didn't mesh well with them. You didn't like them. There were some character flaws as you saw them. They're like, yeah, I don't like your brother, mother, father, sister, but you're okay.
Yes. But I can't mention who they are. So I'll just go with
It's Spencer.
Got me. That's funny. That's super funny. Oh man. That's good. That'll make it in. That'll make it in the episode. That's a good one.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
The funny thing is, Malice threatens Yerin with her, you'll have to face my disappointment. And Yerin's like,
Okay, buddy.
she's going to bring everything she has, not because her life is on the line, but because she, has, a relationship with Linden and Aethon and Mercy. Then Malice, steps into giving Yerin some advice on how to manifest the sword icon, which is actually useful information, and how she needs to symbolize swordsmanship by herself or in her own right, and not just be a copy of her master, which also leads to Yerin's, Overlord revelation, right? Where she's like, do you remember the Overlord revelation she has?
Yes, stand by. I have it in my notes.
I think it's not being someone else, but I didn't take a note, so.
Yeah, I have it somewhere in my notes here. Here it is. Her revelation is understanding that she is not him, meaning her old sage, and that she is not trying to be him. This revelation is prompted during the duel with Min Shui, the Winter Sage, who pushes Yerin to follow her master's footsteps, yet reminding her that he's the reason she's alive, and that she has his path, his sword, his remnant, and his clothes. Yerin pushes back against the idea, stating that she's not her master and not trying to be. And then she advances to Overlord. That's the revelation. She's not him and not trying to be him.
Correct. We are again getting ahead of ourselves because she doesn't learn that in this conversation with Malice, but it does help her to get there, right? Because we are brought back to Yerin learning what prizes she gets. One of those prizes is I was going to call it the Rainbow Bridge. It's the Moonlight Bridge. One of those prizes is the Moonlight Bridge, which lets you travel lots of distances once a day or once every 3 days. I can't remember which. And Ruby, because she helped win, is like, I want to use this. I want to go see Lindon. And Yerin's like, no, we should maybe try it with the sages first and figure it out. And Ruby just goes rogue and just does it. And so she's
Love
gone.
is a crazy thing, man. Love will make you do crazy stuff.
Yes.
We haven't talked about this, but Ruby has a little crush on Linden. And Linden doesn't want any part of it.
That is the perception.
Yeah.
He's not sure what to do. Yeah. Yep.
Well, he sure as hell doesn't want to kiss her and breaks her little snake bloodshadow heart.
Yes. Little
heartbreaker Linden over here, apparently.
Yeah. Ruby is now trapped with Lyndon on the front lines for at least a day or 3 days or whatever it is, because she can't go back until the Moonlight Bridge is ready.
Has to recharge.
Yep. So that's a fun little moment. But let's fast forward as we wind down here to the final battle, right? Where, as you said earlier, Yerin and Ruby merge with one another, which is, I think I'd call it a trope in anime-style things. I feel like that's fair.
Yeah, that's fair. But it's one of those tropes that we accept because it's done okay here, and it's a staple of the genre, so I'm not knocking it.
Yep. So Yerin and Ruby find themselves in the waiting room. Yerin is frustrated all around. Ruby makes a point that she might not have to advance with her. They focus on preparing for the battle. Safarnatoth walks out with smug confidence. She got some devices and things as well that I can't remember the names of it off the top of my head. And she uses them. One of them's like an engine, something or other. Whatever. Thinking that she's going to do a really good job. They fight. Yerin and Ruby hold their own. The battle turns in their favor. Yerin again touches the sword icon, but loses concentration, and Safarnatoth takes the opening to slice off her head. 1 point to Safarnatoth. Charity and Min Shui tell her she must master the sword icon or not use it at all, which is a weird thing to say mid-battle, right? Everything is literally on the line at the moment.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Okay, second match. She feels it more closely, but is just a little bit off. Match 2 also goes to Safarnatoth. I don't remember how many battles they do.
3?
It can't be.
5?
Because...
Well, let's figure it out.
So, match 2 goes to Safarnatoth. Again, Charity and Min Shui argue over whether or not Yerin should try for the sword icon. Yerin feels Ruby's despair, which that doesn't sound like a great sign. And she asks Ruby whether she could win if she
3 battles, I
swallowed
was
up
right.
Yerin's spirit and body, thinking that they could split again after. She's afraid but willing. Ruby says no, not certain it could be done, and Linden would hate her for it. That answer enrages Yerin, and she asks Ruby what she wants, which hasn't happened yet, right? She's always been fighting her, and this is the first time that she's said, hey, what do you want? And Ruby's response is kind of touching for being a blood shadow. She said she just wants everybody to live, which is ironic.
Yep. Well, I was right. It is 3 battles. Match 1, Yerin and Ruby hold their own, but Safara capitalizes on them working together as they touch the sword icon, or Yerin touches the sword icon and loses concentration. Safara defeats her, winning the first match. Safara beats her just by a hair, because she's a hair off, so putting her 2-0. Then, after the second loss, Yerin and Ruby make the unprecedented decision, in my notes here as I wrote it, becoming an overloaded herald. And with her new power, Yerin quickly defeats Sephora, cutting her in half within seconds of the battle start. And this ends the tournament.
Yes, that is what the whole book was leading up toward. Now, there's a whole bunch of other stuff that happened, like we talked about, but thoroughly entertaining to me to have such a climax where we lost Ruby, but gained a Yerin Ruby, if you will.
Yeah.
And now Yerin remembers being both Yerin and Ruby, but feels more like herself.
Yeah, and she's an Overlord Herald, which is something new for everybody.
That has never happened before. Right. So, tournament's basically over. I want to talk about one sort of connection point here as we wrap up the episode, which might be a short talk, might be a long talk. We will find out. Icons. Sword icon, void icon, strength icon. They're these magical markers in world that are kind of these Jungian reflections of archetypal truths that each of the characters internalize. And so, like, Lyndon's void icon is the acceptance of his own nature to be hungry, to have an absence, but still have ambition. Yerin's sword icon is this archetypal truth of mastery and form as her identity. Aethon's manipulation of systems. So there's those. Fury also taps into the strength icon. I believe Northstrider taps into this the dragon icon or the strength icon. Might not happen in this book, though. But this idea of archetypal truths speaking to each of these different characters, I would say, adds to the fact that they feel real as well.
Yeah, and to your point about the Jungian thing, to manifest an icon, an individual needs to deeply understand and sense their madra and regularly train their willpower. So not even in the introduction part of a book, but you're going to boil it down to individual parts and pick one of them. I think that kind of makes sense. I think what you're saying kind of makes sense. So I'm agreeing. Because there's also this idea that a specific icon that manifests when it does, it depends on the nature of one's madra and how do I say this? Maybe a concept or an understanding of your core or of your identity.
True that.
And that works for Yerin because she has to.
Than I thought.
And that works for Yerin because her journey or her ability, let's put it that way, her ability to manifest the sword icon, and yes, her journey getting there, but her ability to manifest the sword icon, I think, involves the understanding that she needs to, quote, symbolize her swordmanship in her own right and not be a copy of her master. Lyndon, at the Underlord stage, manifests the void icon. His revelation is tied to the concept of emptiness, a bottomless pit. He proclaims something, if I'm remembering correctly, like, I am the end, or something, or it's somehow that phrase stuck out of my head. And I don't have the book in front of me, I just have the notes. And this manifestation is significant. It's a significant event in Lyndon's life that's even noticed by the monarchs. He has a new badge crafted by Yerin. It's etched to the character for empty or unsold. So it's connected to his beginnings. This is said in Sacred Valley terms. It directly reflects his icon, but he is now far, far above anything he was when he was unsold.
100%. So we won't get into all of this here. Pull up that link I sent you. But Linden sort of leans towards two different Jungian archetypes. The Seeker and the Shadow. The Shadow is this dark self, the repressed self, and the Seeker is more of the wanderer, explorer. I'll give you a brief description of the two, and then, Slava, I want to get your take on which one does Lyndon really fall into more. So the Seeker is driven by a deep yearning of something beyond the known, of purpose and identity and transcendence, rejecting comfort of the familiar and instead wandering into the unknown territory, physically, psychologically. The Shadow, on the other hand, represents the unconscious aspects of the self, fears, desires, hopes, traits we deny or suppress or reject, and it's part of us we'd rather hide but must face to become whole. Both of these archetypes, within reason, end up being part of who make up Lyndon as a whole. So my question to you, Slava, is which one is more Lyndon based on where we're at in the series?
I'm glad you qualified your question because I think
I always qualify my words.
Is
my words
a
are
shadow first?
Nature.
Okay. I think he is a shadow.
I'm not done diatribing.
Is that your void?
All right, carry on.
Icon? It says the diatriber. So he is the shadow because of his fear of never being enough, his hunger, his desperation. He's even reckless at times. He seeks the things that he cannot have. So he's primarily a shadow. But that drives him to be a seeker also. Like, because of his desires to be something more than he is, because of his fear of not being enough, he goes into situations and he literally seeks out things, and he's driven to rise above his original state, which is unsold. So I wouldn't be able to put a percentage on it, and I don't think it's 50-50 for sure. Like, if I had, a gun to my head, say how much, it'd definitely not be 50-50. If I'm forced to answer that, maybe 85-15, 90-10, but he's definitely a shadow first and foremost. But it does drive him to do what you described as a seeker does.
I think you're right, but for the wrong reasons.
Enlighten me.
So, as the books progress, he steps into, you talked about this earlier, more of himself. His character develops more, which I would say is the shadow. But he's certainly not at the percentage that you've offered because there's 4 books left.
Well, then I can't answer the question. That's a moot point that I just made because I haven't read all the books.
No, but you're on the right track. And the reason I say it's for the wrong reasons is because he's still too polite, right? So he's still seeking, but he has not integrated the shadow archetype, his dark side, his repressed self. You're everything, I bet. I can't even get my jokes out. I'm sounding like you.
That's what post-it is for.
Oh, you better leave that one in. So he is stepping into that, and as he continues to grow in power, like the dark side, the dark self, the repressed self surfaces. And I told you this, 4 or 5 books ago, where it's like his whole gratitude, apologies thing, it diminishes, right? Like he hasn't really said that this book for the most part. And it continues to go that direction because he gets more and more powerful to the point where he has to, he's not making friends with the monarchs, and that's going to affect the rest of the books. So he's going to have to deal with them sooner than later. And when he deals with them, they are not going to respond well if he continues to be the seeker, where it's gratitude, apologies, whatever. He's going to have to integrate the dark self, the repressed self. So I'd say right now he is 60-40, 60% seeker, 40%. It might even be 70-30 at the moment. But there's going to be a change that happens very soon to help him start to channel more of that. And honestly, it's basically just him getting kicked around, but not realizing that he's actually way more powerful than he gives himself credit for. And then starts to be like, okay, I'm sick of this. I also think somebody gives him a pep talk. I can't remember. But that sounds right. Might be Mercy, actually.
All right. So what I'm hearing you say is that I'm actually wrong for all the reasons. Because you kind of inverted what I just said completely.
I inverted it, but the thing is, you're right, but for the wrong reasons. And I guess I also should have added, you're right, just not yet.
Okay. I'll take it. But that's because I haven't read the books in which
because
he becomes
there's 4
the
more
shadow.
Books, right? Right.
Well, forget 4. There could have been 2 more books. He becomes the shadow that I described in future books, not in this book.
Yes. Right.
Okay.
Right. So you're right for the wrong reasons, and not yet. Do you guys follow that? Drop it in the comments. Let me know if you follow that. Don't shake your head at me.
Yes. I have an illiterate joke in my head, but I won't say it. Because it's probably dead by now. I'll email it to you.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that's it. That's the episode. Thanks for joining us today on SideQuest. Part 2, Wintersteel. Can't wait to have you back next time when we hear from JT, Spencer, and Casey. Going to be a fun one, as always. Make sure you tune in, like and subscribe. Do you have a group of friends that you read Cradle with, or is that just me?
I don't think it's just you, but I hear that Spencer's bringing that annoying brother that you hate.
I see that you're trying to do a callback right now in the humor. It's not working.
No.
Yep. Thanks for trying.
Well, that's it,
folks.
folks.
See you next time. I have a favor to ask you. If you like what we're doing, the simplest way to support the show is to hit subscribe. In return, we'll keep leveling up, we'll listen to your feedback, and read authors that you suggest. And of course, we'll take side quests along the way.